You evil witch, how many times have I warned you to pack your things and leave my son's house? Over my death body will you marry my son? Then you will have to die, because nothing, even your dead husband, has the ability to stop me with marrying the man I love. You must be out of your mind to talk to me in that manner. In fact, you are leaving my son's house today. You evil witch. You think you can come from nowhere to take my sons away from me? It can never be possible. And madam, you have to calm down, because you cannot do more than a dead rat. If you like, shout, from now till next year, I go nowhere, clock it. And when your son comes back, you will explain to him what was destroying his past relationship, because I have gathered the evidence I wanted.
To understand what was happening, we have to go back several years earlier. Everyone who knew Mama Grace believed she was one of the most loving mothers anyone could ever meet. After losing her husband when her son Chinedu was still very young, she devoted her entire life to raising him. She worked long hours every day, sacrificed her own happiness, and made sure Chinedu never lacked anything. Because of this, Chinedu adored his mother. He often told people that every success in his life was because of her sacrifices. Their bond was so strong that many people admired it. As Chinedu grew older, he became everything a mother could be proud of. He was educated, hardworking, successful, and respected. He had a great career in the technology industry and lived comfortably. Many women admired him, and many parents hoped their daughters would marry someone like him. From the outside, his future looked perfect. However, there was one strange problem nobody could imagine. Every serious relationship he entered always ended the same way. The first woman Chinedu truly loved was a beautiful banker named Ada. Their relationship seemed perfect. They spent nearly 2 years together, and both families had already started talking about marriage. Friends were convinced a wedding was around the corner. Then, without warning, Ada ended the relationship. One evening she sent Chinedu a short message saying she could not continue, and before he could ask questions, she blocked him everywhere. Chinedu was devastated. He called repeatedly, sent messages, and even tried reaching her through mutual friends, but nothing worked. It was as if she had vanished from his life overnight. Through all of it, Mama Grace stayed by his side, comforting him and assuring him that the right woman would eventually come along. A year later, Chinedu met another woman named Chioma. Once again, everything seemed perfect. They traveled together, shared beautiful memories, and openly discussed marriage. Chinedu slowly allowed himself to believe in love again. Unfortunately, history repeated itself. Just when things became serious, Chioma suddenly left him without giving a proper explanation. Once again, Chinedu found himself heartbroken and confused. He couldn't understand why women who seemed deeply in love with him always disappeared when the relationship became serious. As the years passed, the same thing happened again and again. Every relationship followed an almost identical pattern. Everything would be wonderful in the beginning. The woman would become deeply attached to him. Marriage discussions would begin. Then suddenly, the relationship would collapse. By the time Chinedu reached his mid-30s, he had almost convinced himself that marriage simply wasn't meant for him. He focused on work and stopped expecting much from relationships. Then everything changed when he attended a business conference in Lagos. Chinedu wasn't expecting anything special that day. He simply wanted to network with other professionals and learn a few things from the speakers. During one of the sessions, however, he met a young woman named Chioma. Unlike many people at the event, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was confident without being arrogant, intelligent without showing off, and friendly without pretending to be someone she wasn't. What started as a simple conversation quickly turned into something much deeper. Before the conference ended, they exchanged numbers. Over the following weeks, their conversations became longer and more personal. Soon they were speaking every day. For once in past years, Chinedu felt genuinely happy again. His friends noticed the difference in him. He laughed more, smiled more, and seemed excited about life in a way they hadn't seen for years. The relationship progressed naturally, and before long, both of them knew they wanted something more serious. Chioma wasn't interested in Chinedu because of his money or success. She already had her own successful digital marketing business and was doing well for herself. That independence was one of the things Chinedu admired most about her. Eventually, he decided it was time for Chioma to meet the most important person in his life, his mother. The first meeting appeared to go well. Mama Grace welcomed Chioma warmly, offered her food, and treated her kindly. Chinedu was relieved because he wanted the two women to get along to each other. Throughout the visit, everyone smiled and laughed together. To Chioma, Mama Grace seemed like a caring mother who only wanted the best for her son. Everything felt normal and good. However, the atmosphere changed the moment Chinedu stepped outside to answer a phone call. The smile slowly disappeared from Mama Grace's face. She looked directly at Chioma and calmly told her that many women had sat in the exact same chair before her. Many women had believed they would eventually become part of the family. According to her, every single one of them had failed. Instead of looking nervous, Chioma simply smiled and replied that those women must have had excellent taste. The answer caught Mama Grace by surprise. She wasn't used to people responding to her that way. Before she could say anything else, Chinedu returned, and both women immediately acted as though nothing had happened. From that day forward, a secret battle began. Whenever Chinedu was around, everything appeared peaceful. Mama Grace smiled, Chioma smiled, and they spoke politely to each other. Chinedu often told people how happy he was that his mother and girlfriend seemed to get along so well. What he didn't know was that the moment he left the room, everything changed. Mama Grace constantly found reasons to criticize Chioma. Sometimes she complained about modern women. Sometimes she questioned Chioma's career. Other times she made subtle comments suggesting that Chioma wasn't good enough for Chinedu. Yet every time she tried to intimidate her, Chioma stood her ground. She never shouted. She never cried. Most importantly, she never backed down. That frustrated Mama Grace more than anything else because the women before Chioma had always become uncomfortable eventually. Chioma seemed different. As the months passed, the arguments became more frequent. One afternoon, Chioma spent hours preparing a special meal because Chinedu was coming over later that evening. After stepping away for a few minutes to answer a call, she returned to discover that the food had disappeared. Instantly she became confused. She searched the kitchen until she noticed the containers inside the trash bin. When she asked what had happened, Mama Grace calmly admitted that she had thrown everything away because she didn't think it looked good enough. Most people would have exploded with anger. Instead, Chioma smiled, picked up her car keys, and announced that she would simply buy fresh ingredients and cook everything again. The response irritated Mama Grace because it wasn't the reaction she had been hoping for. Another day, Mama Grace invited several relatives over without telling Chioma beforehand. Throughout the visit, she spent the evening making comments about how many modern women only cared about themselves and weren't suitable for marriage. Everyone knew who she was referring to. Still, Chioma refused to lose her temper. Instead, she calmly remarked that some people became so focused on controlling others that they forgot to enjoy their own lives. The room immediately fell silent. Several relatives looked away awkwardly while Mama Grace struggled to hide her anger. Despite all the tension, Chioma noticed something strange. Every time she asked Chinedu about his former relationships, the stories never seemed complete. The women had all disappeared suddenly, yet none of them had ever given him a clear explanation. The more she thought about it, the more unusual it seemed. One evening, while scrolling through social media, she came across an old photograph posted years earlier by one of Chinedu's former girlfriends. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then she noticed someone standing beside the woman in the picture. It was Mama Grace. The two looked surprisingly close, almost like friends. That immediately caught Chioma's attention because Chinedu had previously told her that his mother barely knew any of his ex-girlfriends. The discovery stayed in her mind for days. Then one night, something happened that changed everything. As Chioma prepared to go to bed, her phone vibrated. She picked it up and noticed a message from an anonymous account. There was no profile picture, no name, and no information about the sender. The account had sent only one sentence. Before you marry Chinedu, ask yourself why every woman disappeared after meeting his mother. Chioma stared at the screen. Her heart immediately began racing. She quickly typed a reply asking who the sender was, but before she could get an answer, the account disappeared completely. For several minutes, she sat motionless, staring at the message. Suddenly, all the strange moments from the past few months began replaying in her mind. The photograph. The secret hostility. The warnings. The constant attempts to push her away. For the first time since meeting Chinedu, Chioma found herself wondering if there was a dark secret hiding behind every failed relationship. And deep down, she had a feeling that discovering the truth was going to change everything.
If you're really enjoying this video so far, consider subscribing to my small channel. My boyfriend promised to take me out if I hit 1,000 subscribers, and that would mean the whole world to me. Thanks for listening this far.
The anonymous message refused to leave Chioma's mind. For several days, she tried convincing herself that it was probably a prank. After all, anyone could create a fake account and send a mysterious message. Yet the more she thought about it, the more uncomfortable she became. The photograph she had found on social media kept replaying in her mind. According to Chinedu, his mother barely knew any of his former girlfriends. Yet there she was in the picture, smiling beside one of them as if they were close friends. The more Chioma thought about it, the more she felt that something wasn't right. Instead of telling Chinedu about the message, she decided to keep it to herself. She needed answers before making accusations. At the same time, the secret battle between her and Mama Grace continued. Every morning, Chinedu would leave for work believing the two women got along perfectly. The moment he left, however, the atmosphere changed instantly. The smiles disappeared, and the tension returned. Mama Grace seemed determined to make Chioma uncomfortable. She criticized almost everything she did, from the way she dressed to the way she spoke. Sometimes she would make comments about how modern women didn't understand family values. Other times she would suggest that Chioma wasn't the kind of woman a man should marry. Yet no matter what she said, Chioma refused to back down. Instead of becoming intimidated, she answered calmly and confidently, which only frustrated Mama Grace even more. One afternoon, Chioma decided to learn more about the women who had dated Chinedu before her. Using social media, she managed to find Ada. At first, Ada ignored her messages. However, after several attempts, she finally agreed to talk. What Chioma learned during that conversation shocked her. Ada explained that shortly before ending her relationship with Chinedu, she had received anonymous messages claiming he was cheating. The messages contained screenshots and information that looked convincing at the time. Believing the information was true, she ended the relationship without giving Chinedu a chance to defend himself. Years later, she still wasn't sure whether she had made the right decision. The conversation raised even more questions. If Ada had received anonymous messages, who sent them? More importantly, why did the same thing seem to happen in every relationship? Then she was determined to find answers. Chioma contacted another former girlfriend. Then another. The stories were different, but the pattern remained the same. Each woman had received information that made her lose trust in Chinedu. Some were told he was cheating. Others were told he planned to leave them after marriage. One woman even claimed someone had warned her that Chinedu was only pretending to love her. Every story ended the same way. The woman left, and the relationship collapsed. As the weeks passed, Chioma became convinced that someone had deliberately sabotaged every relationship Chinedu had ever had. The question was who? Deep down, she already suspected the answer, but she needed proof. Meanwhile, Mama Grace seemed to sense that something was changing. She noticed that Chioma was no longer reacting to her insults the way she once did. Instead of becoming upset, she appeared calm and focused. That confidence worried Mama Grace because it felt as though Chioma knew something she wasn't supposed to know. One evening, the tension between them became impossible to hide. Chinedu had traveled to Abuja for a business meeting and wouldn't return until the following day. As soon as he left, Mama Grace confronted Chioma directly. She demanded to know why she was still with her son and insisted that she would never become part of the family. Unlike the women before her, however, Chioma refused to remain silent. She looked Mama Grace directly in the eyes and calmly told her that she wasn't going anywhere. The answer stunned the older woman. For years, every woman had eventually walked away. Some left because they were frightened. Others left because they were exhausted. Chioma was different. The more pressure Mama Grace applied, the stronger Chioma seemed to become. The arguments continued for several days until everything finally exploded. One afternoon, both women found themselves alone in the kitchen. The tension that had been building for months finally boiled over. What started as another argument quickly turned into a shouting match. Mama Grace accused Chioma of trying to take her son away. She insisted that no woman would ever come between them. Then she made a shocking confession. In the heat of the moment, she admitted that every woman who had entered Chinedu's life eventually realized she could never win against her. She spoke with so much anger that she failed to realize what she was revealing. Before Chioma could respond, Mama Grace grabbed a pot from the stove and threw its contents at her. The hot soup splashed across Chioma's clothes. For a brief moment, the room became completely silent. Mama Grace expected tears. She expected fear. She expected Chioma to run away just like the others had. Instead, Chioma slowly looked up and smiled. That smile immediately unsettled Mama Grace. Rather than crying, Chioma calmly thanked her. The response made no sense. With confusion, Mama Grace demanded to know why she was smiling. Chioma then revealed that she had spent weeks investigating the truth behind Chinedu's failed relationships. She had spoken to his former girlfriends, gathered screenshots, saved messages, and documented everything she had discovered. The anonymous lies, the fake warnings, and the suspicious messages all pointed toward the same person. Mama Grace. For the first time in a while, the older woman looked genuinely afraid. The confident woman who had controlled every situation suddenly realized she had lost control. Chioma explained that she now had enough evidence to prove what had happened. Most importantly, she intended to show everything to Chinedu. The realization hit Mama Grace like a wave. For years, she had successfully driven women away from her son. She believed Chioma would eventually leave too. Instead, she had finally met someone who refused to run. The following evening, Chinedu returned home. What happened next changed everything. Chioma showed him everything she had discovered, including screenshots, messages, and conversations with his former girlfriends. At first, he refused to believe it. The idea that his own mother could have sabotaged his relationship seemed impossible. However, the evidence was overwhelming. Piece by piece, the truth became impossible to deny. Every failed relationship traced back to the same source. When Chinedu confronted his mother, she initially denied everything. Then she tried blaming the women. Finally, when she realized there was no escape, she broke down in tears and confessed. She admitted that after losing her husband, she became terrified of losing her son as well. Every woman who entered his life felt like a threat. She convinced herself that she was protecting him, but in reality, she had been destroying his happiness. As she spoke, the years of guilt and regret finally came pouring out. The confession devastated Chinedu. For years, he had blamed himself for every failed relationship. He had believed there was something wrong with him. Now he finally understood the truth. The person he trusted most had been the reason behind his heartbreak. The realization hurt deeply, but it also brought clarity. For the first time, everything made sense. With tears streaming down her face, Mama Grace turned toward Chioma and apologized. It wasn't the kind of apology people give when they are caught. It was the apology of someone who finally understood the damage they had caused. To everyone's surprise, Chioma forgave her. She didn't excuse the behavior, but she understood the fear and loneliness that had driven it. Over time, Mama Grace slowly changed. She stopped trying to control her son's life and learned to respect his choices. A year later, Chinedu and Chioma stood before family and friends on their wedding day. As Mama Grace watched them exchange vows, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. She finally understood that loving someone doesn't mean controlling them. Real love requires trust. It requires respect. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is learning to let go. Moral lesson: love becomes dangerous when it turns into control. Parents should guide their children, not manipulate their choices. Trust and respect build strong families, while fear and control destroy them. The people we love are not possessions, and true love allows them the freedom to live their own lives.
If you truly enjoyed this story, don't just watch and go. Subscribe to this channel and be part of this journey. We drop 2-3 African stories every week, stories that teach, shock, and open your eyes. Help us grow this channel by liking and share it to someone who need to hear this story. Stay connected, more powerful stories are coming every week.